Have you ever wondered why the same woman who once looked at you like you were her entire world suddenly begins to feel distant, almost unreachable, as if you're strangers sharing the same space? That cold shift, that subtle pulling away, is not random. It's psychological. And the uncomfortable truth is, most men don't even realize they caused it. You see, the biggest mistakes men make in relationships don't usually come from cruelty, betrayal, or neglect. They come from something much quieter, something that creeps in without you even noticing. It's the slow erosion of her attraction and respect. And here's the twist. This erosion is not caused by her demands being too much. It's caused by you forgetting the very essence that made her want you in the first place. At the beginning, you were bold, confident, full of energy. You pursued her like a man who knew his worth, and that intensity ignited something inside her. But over time, many men trade that fire for comfort. You stop leading, you stop challenging, you stop being the man she admired. Slowly, without realizing, you become predictable. And predictability, while safe, is the slowest killer of a woman's desire. She doesn't want perfection. She doesn't want endless gifts or constant reassurance. What she craves is the energy of a man who remains grounded in himself, who doesn't lose his edge once he has her. The first and perhaps greatest mistake men make in relationships is confusing love with passivity. You think being nice will secure her heart forever, but niceness, when it comes at the cost of strength, turns into weakness. She will never admit it out loud, but her psychology is wired to notice the moment you start living for her approval instead of living with purpose. She begins to test you, not because she enjoys it, but because her subconscious needs to confirm whether you are still the man who can hold his ground. And if you fail those invisible tests, she won't fight with you. She'll just start drifting. And by the time you notice, it feels like she's already gone. One of the deepest mistakes men make in relationships is believing that love is enough to hold everything together. It sounds beautiful, it sounds romantic, but psychology doesn't work that way. Love is not glue, it's fuel. And fuel runs out if it isn't replenished with the right elements. What most men do is pour themselves into a woman in the beginning, giving attention, effort, and passion. But as time goes on, the effort shifts. Not because you don't care, but because you begin to prioritize comfort, routine, and the illusion that she will always be there. You mistake consistency for security, when in reality, her mind is always measuring your energy. A woman's psychology doesn't crave endless comfort. It craves polarity. The spark she felt at the beginning wasn't because you were always available. It was because you had a life, a direction, a gravitational pull she wanted to be a part of. But when a man loses himself in the relationship, when his identity shrinks down to being just her partner, she doesn't feel secure. She feels trapped. And here lies the paradox most men never see. The more you orbit around her, the more she feels suffocated. The more you prioritize pleasing her above all else, the less she respects you. And respect is the oxygen of attraction. Without it, desire suffocates. Think about it. How many times have you seen a woman stay with a man who gave her everything but couldn't hold his own ground? She becomes restless, irritable, cold. It's not because she's ungrateful. It's because biology and psychology don't reward complacency. So, here's the truth no one told you. The second biggest mistake men make is abandoning their own growth. You stop pushing yourself, stop challenging yourself, stop expanding your world. And when your world shrinks, hers shrinks too. A woman wants to admire her man. She wants to feel like she's beside someone who is moving forward, someone she can look up to. Not a man who once had drive but now hides in comfort. And once she senses you've stopped striving, she doesn't consciously decide to lose interest. It just happens. Slowly, invisibly, and painfully. Another devastating mistake men make in relationships is underestimating the power of emotional presence. You might think providing, protecting, and working hard are enough. And while those are vital, they're not the full story. A woman doesn't just want a man who pays the bills, she wants a man who makes her feel seen. And here's where so many men slip. They confuse being physically present with being emotionally present. You're in the same room, but your mind is elsewhere. You nod, you give half-listened responses, you scroll on your phone while she speaks. You believe she doesn't notice, but she always notices. Psychology has proven something many men resist. Women are far more attuned to subtle changes in attention and emotional energy. She can feel when you've checked out, and when she feels consistently unseen, something begins to break inside her. You might not notice the cracks right away, but they spread like fire. She becomes distant, not because she doesn't care, but because she no longer feels safe opening up to you. And once that wall is built, tearing it down is almost impossible. The third great mistake is forgetting that connection is a practice, not a one-time achievement. At the beginning, you listened with curiosity. You leaned in, asked questions, cared about her stories. But with time, familiarity breeds laziness. You stop listening deeply. You stop paying attention to the tiny details she gives you, and those details, to her, are everything. When she tells you about her fears, her dreams, her day, what she's really saying is, "Do you value my inner world?" And every time you're distracted, every time you dismiss it as unimportant, you answer her with silence. Men often think providing materially is enough proof of love. But women live in a different emotional economy. They trade in attention, presence, and validation. And the truth is, she doesn't need hours of your time. She needs depth in the time you do give. 10 minutes of genuine, undistracted presence outweighs hours of empty proximity. Ignore this, and you will watch her heart close little by little until one day you're standing next to her, but she's already gone in sprint. There's a mistake men make so quietly. They don't even realize it's destroying everything. Trying to control the relationship instead of leading it. The difference might sound subtle, but in psychology, it's the dividing line between attraction and resentment. Control is rooted in fear. It shows up when you start monitoring who she talks to, questioning her choices, doubting her intentions. You believe you're protecting the relationship, but what you're really doing is revealing insecurity. And insecurity is poison to her respect. At the beginning, you led with confidence. You had a vision, you created experiences, you guided her into your world. That leadership made her feel safe, excited, and drawn to you. But over time, many men replace leadership with control. Instead of being a man she wants to follow, you become a man who cages her. You stop inspiring and start restricting. And here's what psychology proves. People rebel against cages. No matter how much she loves you, the moment she feels trapped, her desire turns into quiet resentment. The fourth great mistake, then, is mistaking leadership for dominance. True leadership isn't about telling her what to do. It's about being so rooted in your direction, your purpose, and your self-respect that she naturally wants to align with you. A woman doesn't need a dictator. She needs a man who knows where he's going, who makes decisions with strength, who invites her into a bigger vision. That's the difference between a leader and a controller. But here's the brutal truth most men don't want to face. Control comes from fear of loss, and fear of loss comes from lack of abundance. If you believe she's your only chance at love, you'll cling, you'll restrict, you'll smother, and the more you smother, the more she pulls away. The irony is almost cruel. The harder you try to hold on, the faster she slips through your fingers. When a woman feels freedom with you, she flourishes. When she feels confined by you, she withdraws. Attraction can't survive in fear, and if you try to build love on control, what you end up building is a ticking time bomb, and one day it explodes. Perhaps the most dangerous mistake men make in relationships is assuming that once she loves you, she will love you the same way forever. This belief is comforting, but it's a lie. Love is alive. It grows or it dies depending on how it's nourished. Yet so many men treat a relationship like a finish line instead of a garden. You win her heart, you feel secure, and then you stop doing the very things that made her fall for you. And little by little, she feels the shift. Not in one big explosion, but in tiny moments that cut her deeper than you realize. Psychology reveals something brutal. Women don't fall out of love suddenly. They fall out of love slowly, silently, almost invisibly. By the time she says, "I don't feel the same anymore," the truth is she's been grieving the relationship for months, sometimes even years. And the mistake men make is ignoring the signs while convincing themselves everything is fine. You see her pulling away, but instead of addressing it, you bury it under routine. You avoid uncomfortable conversations. You hope the problem solves itself. But problems ignored are like cracks in glass. They only spread. The fifth mistake is emotional complacency. You forget that passion isn't automatic. You assume she knows you love her, so you stop showing it in ways that matter to her. You stop surprising her, stop making her laugh, stop creating moments of intimacy that break the routine. And when routine dominates love, desire suffocates. She doesn't leave because you're terrible. She leaves because you became invisible. Here's the harsh truth. Women remember feelings, not facts. She won't recall every word you said, but she will never forget how you made her feel. And if the feelings shift from excitement and security to boredom and neglect, her heart quietly closes. Most men realize this too late, standing in shock as she says, "I just don't feel it anymore." But the truth is, it wasn't sudden. It was death by 1,000 small cuts. A relationship doesn't collapse in one night. It collapses when you stop feeding it, when you assume it can survive on yesterday's efforts. That's the mistake that costs more men their love than anything else. Now let me reveal the hardest truth of all, the mistake that ties everything together. Men lose relationships not because they are unworthy, but because they forget themselves. They forget that the very thing that made her fall in love wasn't just the way they treated her, but the way they carried themselves. She was drawn to your strength, your ambition, your presence, your fire. And somewhere along the way, you dimmed that fire, believing love meant sacrificing your edge. But psychology is merciless here. The moment you abandon your own essence, attraction begins to die. The biggest mistake men make in relationships is this: living for her instead of living with purpose. When your entire identity becomes tied to making her happy, you actually destroy the very dynamic that created her happiness in the first place. She doesn't want to be your world. She wants to join you as you build a world. She doesn't want you to orbit around her. She wants to feel the gravity of your direction, your vision, your drive. Without that, she begins to feel restless, unsafe, disconnected. And it's not because she doesn't love you, it's because she can't admire a man who has forgotten how to admire himself. If you want to keep her heart, you must keep your edge. Stay grounded in your purpose. Never stop growing, never stop challenging yourself. Presence, leadership, respect, and emotional depth, these are not optional. They are oxygen to the fire of love. And when you forget them, the flame dies. But when you live them, the flame doesn't just survive, it grows stronger with time. So hear me clearly. Your relationship is not guaranteed. It is a reflection of who you are becoming every single day. If you grow, it grows. If you shrink, it crumbles. The responsibility is heavy, but it's also powerful, because it means you hold the keys. Now I want to ask you something personal. Which of these mistakes do you see yourself guilty of right now, and what are you going to do to fix it? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear your story. And if this video opened your eyes, hit like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who desperately needs to hear this truth today.